It's unusual for us to be having a meeting in the evening, but due to the strat plan that the NCOP had during the day, we had no choice but to have our meeting in the evening. Let me take this opportunity and welcome all of you. And colleagues, I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to request Estelle to take us through the apologies, and then we'll follow the agenda as is. Estelle, do you have any apologies?
Good evening, Chairperson. Yes, thank you. We received one apology from the Deputy Minister Sarupen, who's unable to attend due to National Treasury business. And then, of course, my co-committee secretary, Lubabalo Nodada, who is on leave due to a family bereavement. Those are the only apologies we have, ma'am.
Colleagues, let me also apologize for not having my camera on. I do not have electricity, and I know I'm going to struggle with the network. And heartfelt condolences to Mr. Nodada as he is bereaved. One of his uncles has passed on. He was actually on leave, and he had to extend his leave due to the bereavement. Heartfelt condolences to him. I also have an apology, Estelle, for the whip of the committee, Honorable Ngumalo. She's still not okay. She's not yet back. So we're still keeping her in our prayers. Colleagues, we meet today in terms of our constitutional and legislative mandate to consider the special appropriation bill for the 2025-26 financial year, guided by the Constitution and Money Bills Amendment Procedure and Related Matters Act. Colleagues, while the bill seeks to address urgent expenditure requirements, the committee remains concerned about the implications for the fiscal discipline, the budget credibility, and effective oversight. We will therefore, colleagues, focus on the justification for urgency, implementation readiness, value for money, and accountability, particularly in relation to infrastructure delivery and support to state institutions. We welcome both the FFC, led by your good self, Dr. Mbava, and the colleagues from National Treasury, Makawarekwe. And we also welcome your independent input, FFC, which is critical in strengthening Parliament's oversight role. I always want to emphasize this role because you are one of the stakeholders that really plays a major role in the work of the committee, and we really appreciate the help that you assist with the committee with and your insight. The committee therefore looks forward to a focused and constructive engagement. Colleagues, I'm going to request that we allow both the National Treasury and the FFC to make their presentation. We will therefore take discussions after. But looking at how you will be taking your discussions, colleagues, there's another work of the committee which we will need to deal with. So after your engagements, we will allow FFC and National Treasury to vacate the platform. Then we will deal with matters of the committee as members of this committee. Thank you very much and welcome once again. Let me allow first the FFC. Is it FFC or National Treasury, Estelle, according to the program?
Ma'am, we had National Treasury first on the agenda.
Can we have National Treasury to give us their presentation? Member Khaurekwe, or whoever that is assigned to lead the National Treasury on the presentation, you are welcome to do so.
Good evening, Chair and Honourable Members. This is Ulrika Britton, the DDG for Public Finance. The presentation that will be done by the National Treasury will be done by Dr. Mashudi Bicha. And I'm going to ask that he goes straight into that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ulrike, and good evening, honorable members. I'm just going to put the presentation into a slide mode. Chairperson, I hope the presentation is visible.
It is. You may proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and honorable members. So in this presentation, it's quite a short presentation. We are introducing the Special Appropriation Bill for 2025-26 financial year. So in the bill, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, you will have seen that the Special Appropriation Bill has two schedules. It's got Schedule 1 and Schedule 2. Schedule 1 of the Special Appropriation Bill provides 13.5 billion rand for expenditures authorized in terms of Section 6 of the Appropriation Act. These are allocations that were announced during the 2025 adjustment budget by the Minister of Finance. And as I've already said, these are set out in Schedule 1 of the bill. The second aspect of the bill is Schedule 2, where the bill provides an allocation of 8.5 billion rand for expenditures requirements of the state. In terms of the Act, we are introducing this bill in terms of Section 6, subsection 4 of the Appropriation Act for Schedule 1 and Section 73(2) of the Constitution in terms of Schedule 2 allocations, where it empowers the Minister of Finance to introduce a bill anytime before Parliament. Okay, in this slide now, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, we are just summarizing the allocations provided for in Schedule 1, which is in terms of Section 6 of the 2025 Appropriation Act. So you will notice that the bill provides around 2 billion rand or 2.1 billion rand for the rebuilding of Parliament. The bill also provides about 1.1 billion rand to the Department of Home Affairs, specifically to the Independent Electoral Commission for the preparation of the 2026 local government elections. And there is also 1.8 billion rand provided to the National Treasury, Vote 8, for contributions to the capitalization of the credit guarantee vehicle. This allocation, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, it attempts to crowd in private sector investment as part of the broader infrastructure reforms. And of course, within Vote 30, Department of Communications and Digital Technologies, there is 189 million allocation for Centec, specifically for the dual illumination due to delays in the analog switch off. And of course, the bigger chunk of allocation within Schedule 1 of the Special Appropriation Bill is allocated to Vote 40, which is the Department of Transport, around 8.3 billion rand. These are mainly infrastructure-related projects as part of the budget facility for infrastructure. So specifically to provide for the North Corridor within Transnet, which is around 4.9 billion rand, and the Iron Ore Corridor of about 3.4 billion rand. This is mainly to rehabilitate and reinstate two critical corridors, as I've already indicated. And this allocation was also meant to front load some funding, especially for budget facility for infrastructure as part of de-risking the 2026 NTF or fiscal framework, to ensure that as a country, the debt to GDP cost ratio peaks in 2025-26. Now I will move, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, to the Schedule 2 of the Special Appropriation Bill. And this is the breakdown of allocations provided for in terms of, as I said, this is in terms of Section 73(2) of the Constitution, where the Minister used that authority to introduce this bill to make provisions or some allocations that cannot be reasonably delayed. And to also utilize the fiscal space that was provided by some revenue overruns. Then in this schedule, you'll find that within Vote 8 National Treasury, there is a 1 billion rand allocation for share subscription in the International Finance Corporation. I just want to emphasize this allocation, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, that part of this investment or share increase in shareholding, it assists the country. As you can see, the International Finance Corporation already provides around 6.9 billion rand of funding commitments within the country. And our contribution and our continued part of the World Bank/IFC membership, it allows us to crowd some of these funding towards or within the country as well. Within Vote 30, there is also an allocation of 700 million rand towards Centec. This is to really assist Centec with some cash flow, especially given that Centec is owed about 1.5 billion rand by the SABC for signal distribution services. And as I said, this is just to improve the cash flow of Centec. Then the final allocation is around 6.8 billion rand provided again to Vote 40 transport. The big chunk of this is around 5.8 billion rand that is provided to PRASA for South Africa's rolling stock fleet renewal program. And of course, part of this is the budget facility for infrastructure allocation towards the Durban container terminal. There is an expansion project to ensure that the terminal can host bigger vessels or ships as part of the broader improvement of Transnet infrastructure. Okay, this slide provides modalities to account for Schedule 2 allocations. These are the allocations that were provided in terms of Section 73(2) of the Constitution. So here we indicate that despite the effective date of the Act, appropriations and expenditure incurred by the 31st of May 2026 must be regarded as expenditure attributed to the 2025-26 financial year. As I've indicated at the beginning, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, the Special Appropriation Bill applies for the 2025-2026 financial year. And this first bullet, it just outlines the clause in Section 2 of the Special Appropriation Bill. And the other element of this Section 2 of the bill is that any request for rollover funds of unspent funds may be submitted on or before the 5th of June 2026. This is just to accommodate the timing or the delayed effect of the assenting of the bill. Honorable Chair, I think my presentation has come to an end, but I just wish to indicate that we have provided detailed breakdown or explanation of each allocation as part of annexure in terms of Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 allocations. So more details, Honorable Chair, can be found there in Annexure 1. These are some of the issues that I've already touched on very briefly. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. Over to you.
Thank you very much. This was indeed a short presentation, and members have copies of this presentation circulated to their emails and on the WhatsApp group of the committee. Surely they can go through their schedules themselves. Let me invite Dr. Mbava to lead the presentation of the FFC. Doctor.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chairperson, for the opportunity to present to the committee. Greetings to the committee members and also to the colleagues from National Treasury and also to South Africans at large. Chairperson, my hours is also not going to be that long. If you can go to the next slide. We also use this as an opportunity, Chairperson, to also educate as to what is the FFC all about. We are a constitutional institution. To the next slide, please. Constitutional institution, as you have rightfully said, Chair, we are an independent constitutional institution. We provide recommendations to government on the equitable division of revenue and other financial and fiscal matters. And many of these legislative pieces can only be enacted after the recommendations of the Financial and Fiscal Commission have been considered. The next slide. We make strong recommendations as guided by the Constitution in terms of Section 214 of the Constitution. Next slide. What we do, we pioneered the formula for dividing the public finances equitable between the national, provincial, and local government. And also we make recommendations to various parliamentary committees who must seek the FFC's recommendations before approving the national budget, which is what we are here for today, to look at the special appropriation bill. And the committee, rightfully so, must also consider the recommendations of the Financial and Fiscal Commission before approving the special appropriation bill. Next slide. We are also quite a key player in the intergovernmental fiscal relations space in terms of mediation and dispute resolution. We also do performance monitoring and evaluation, where various committees ask the FFC to make assessments and evaluate the effectiveness of provinces and municipalities in how they use the resources that have been allocated to them. So the FFC identifies funding gaps, capacity constraints, and areas where fiscal reforms are needed. Next slide. Our core work is to conduct cutting-edge research on intergovernmental fiscal relations, revenue sharing mechanism, and fiscal sustainability. This is one of our key mandates. On the next slide, I now want to hand over to the research team to take us through the bill. Over to you, Chen and Tim.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, Honorable Chair and members and colleagues from National Treasury. As we are entering into analyzing this 2026 appropriation bill, and to which the National Treasury has presented with much appreciation from our side, with details of the special appropriation bills and the implications thereof. However, I'd like to bring forward 2 points which my research team, Mr. Fabrice, will also delve into the more details. Is this first is that one should not, right, as we always advocate on this platform and to parliaments, in exercising and assisting parliaments in exercising oversight over the budget, is that special appropriations, especially of such nature of appropriations, right, money, should never be seen in isolation. Special appropriation bill is exactly that. It cannot be seen as just a bill on its own for those allocations for various purposes in that matter. Reason being that there is the issue of quantum and quality of execution or of the spend. In that, yes, we see these hundreds of millions or even billions in quantum of these special appropriations, but it may be just a small drop in the ocean, right? In the overall fiscus of the appropriation bill. So one should never, that's my first point, one should never see special appropriation in isolation. It should always be seen together with the appropriation bill, which we are doing here. Second is, as much as it's detailed and useful to know what the money is allocated are for, or going to be used for, as described by in the bill and presented by National Treasury. It would also be useful, I hope you agree, to look at how was the spending performance of this department, of the recipient, of the beneficiary in the last quarter, or in this case, because we're talking about annual budgets, it should be about previous financial year of 2024-25. In other words, one should pay attention, and as we will present in the data, is that if a department had underspending in that 2024-25 financial year, then it raises a question of our budgeting consistency and budgeting and financial planning. If we then tilt the complete other way, right? You were underspending, then why are we giving you more money? So that is a question. And similarly, vice versa. If there was overspending, but then we are cutting their budgets, why? It's very important. So we have always needed to look into the past to see what does it mean in this the budgets going forward. With those 2 points, I hand over to Mr. Fabrice to take us over to the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John, and good evening, Honorable Chair, honorable members, and colleagues on the platform. So I'll start off by providing a high-level look at the the appropriation bill, and just highlighting to members a few of the key allocations, and then going further into the analysis in the following slides. So on this slide, what you'll see is that from the table on the screen, the social development vote accounts for approximately 25% of allocation. Now, this reaffirms the government's redistributive stance. Cooperative governance follows at 11.2%. By contrast, however, the votes for economic and productive sectors, such as trade, industry, and competition, agriculture, and science and innovation, receive less than 1% of total allocations each. What we'd like honorable members to keep in mind here is that while social spending protects households, economic growth ultimately finances social protection. So therefore, there's a need to reflect on whether there's a adequate balance between redistributive growth as well as concrete growth that is fueled by the productive sectors, which can be sustainable over the medium and long term. Now, over the next slides, I'll unpack the analysis on the 2026 appropriation bill. As our head of research, Chen, mentioned, we looked at the percentage change between the allocations in the 2026 appropriation bill relative to the 2025 appropriation bill for the 26-27 financial year. Now, this allowed us to assess budget responsiveness and consistency, and what we termed as the baseline is the 2026-27 financial year allocation that was outlined in the 2025 appropriation bill. So I'll start off by highlighting some of the key votes when it comes to learning and culture, health, and social development votes. So firstly, basic education. Here it received a 5.2% increase for 26-27 compared to the budget 25 baseline, following marginal 0.9% overspending in 24-25. Now, the focus here remains on early childhood development, but however, the Commission would like to express the concern around the poor quality of basic education in South Africa. And here the Commission does support efforts by the department to continue incrementally rolling out mother tongue-based bilingual education over the MTEF period. Moving on to higher education, it was adjusted down by 0.5% for 26-27 relative to its baseline, in line with a 0.3% underspending. Yeah, what we'd like to highlight to honorable members is that the Minister of Finance did acknowledge that the skills development levy funding sector education and training authorities and the National Skills Fund has not yielded the expected outcomes. In response, National Treasury has commissioned that the Government Technical Advisory Center conduct a comprehensive review of the national skills ecosystem in the year ahead. Now, this poor performance of the SETAs is of concern to the Commission, and with the planned review, and this planned review does align with the Commission's own view for the need for a comprehensive review of all SETAs. On health, the allocation remained largely unchanged at close to 67 billion relative to baseline, and now this is consistent with minor underspending. And here the focus remains toward doctor compensation and addressing service shortfalls with the Commission, which the Commission welcomes. Moving on to the economic development votes. Here we'd like to firstly highlight the agriculture, rural development, and land reform votes combined received a total minor increase of 0.1% for 26-27 compared to what was outlined in the budget 2025 for the same year. Now, this follows on from underspending of 4% in 24-25. Here, the National Treasury has announced 400 million that will go towards helping to combat the foot and mouth outbreak. The combined allocation for votes for mineral resources and energy declined by 8.5%, despite prior overspending, revealing a clear budget inconsistency. Despite this, we note that the several strategic developments are underway, such as shale gas research, the junior mine exploration fund, and electricity market reform, which the Commission welcomes. However, there is a need for more consistent and realistic funding planning when it comes to these votes. On the transportation vote here, we'd like to highlight that it increased by 5.9%, consistent with 5.4% overspending in 24-25, with the major allocations for PASA and rail recovery. And this increase for 26-27 is also supported by the special appropriation that is aimed at enhancing freight logistics. Moving on to the peace and security votes. Firstly, I'll start off on defense. Here, it experienced a 1.6% increase for 26-27 relative to the baseline, despite 12% overspending in 24-25. Now, what this suggests is that there's structural underfunding combined with operational demands that exceed budget realities. With regards to Home Affairs, we note that there's been an increase of 10.5%, and here the focus remains on digitization and digital identity systems, including helping to fund the employment of 3,000 ICT qualified youth. Now, the Commission does commend the modernization efforts underway by the Department of Home Affairs, which is crucial to addressing challenges such as fraud and also helping to improve service delivery. We also do note that the increased allocation for Home Affairs is also geared, reflects the special appropriation that is geared towards the preparations for the 2026 local government elections. On the Office of the Chief Justice, it increases by 24.7%, and this is to help enable greater institutional independence and court modernization. And finally, on the police vote, received only a 0.4% increase for 26-27 relative to its budget 2025 baseline. And here we note the 1 billion allocation to the police service through the CARA fund to help support the fight against organized crime, which is an allocation that is welcomed by the Commission. I'll now move on to looking at the direct charges against the National Revenue Fund. And with regards to this, the Commission would just like to highlight two key points. Firstly, when it comes to debt service costs, this decreased by 3.7% or close to 17 billion relative to its 2025 main budget projection. Now, this reduction suggests that government's efforts to stabilize debt and manage borrowing costs may be yielding modest fiscal relief. That said, debt service costs are still crowding out productive expenditure, and any fiscal relief must be used strategically to strengthen growth-enhancing sectors. With regards to judges' salaries, we note an increase of 7.6%, or 95 million in 26-27 relative to its baseline. This follows on from overspending of 12.6% in 24-25, indicating that this increase for 26-27 may not be sufficient enough to meet the organizational needs of the department. Moving on to the Special Appropriation Bill itself. Now, in terms of Schedule 1, we do like to highlight three key factors here, as noted by National Treasury. So the bulk of what was outlined in Schedule 1, 8.3 billion out of the 13.6 billion goes towards the transportation or the transport vote. And these funds are designated for the Development Bank of South Africa Infrastructure Fund for rail projects, which are aimed at enhancing commodity freight logistics. And here I would like to just highlight to members that the Commission has done research on rail sector productivity and highlighted just the downfall that has been witnessed over the past decade when it comes to productivity. So efforts to look at enhancing productivity and making sure the movement of the country's key commodities are welcomed by the Commission. Secondly, I'd like to point out that the 1.8 billion that has been allocated to capitalize the credit guarantee vehicle to help unlock private investment in critical infrastructure. Now, this added funding does reflect a 29.3% increase in the National Treasury's total budget allocation for 26-27 compared to the 22-25 appropriation. However, here we do like to point out that the adjustment appears inconsistent with underspending of 24% that occurred in 24-25. And then lastly, 189 million that goes towards the Department of Communications and Digital Technology votes, and that's to deal with those due elimination costs that has been as a result of delays when it comes to the broadcast digital migration. Now, this actually appears inconsistent with the 0.3% decrease that the Commission identified for 26-27 relative to the vote's original 25 baseline and underspending of 27% in 24-25. Moving on to Schedule 2 of the Special Appropriation Bill. Now here, 6.8 billion of the 8.5 billion that has been appropriated goes towards the transportation vote. And this is geared towards PRASA, rolling stock renewal program. And this also includes 1.8 billion to help PRASA meet its contractual obligations under the agreement with Ibela, which requires a minimum order of 35 locomotives per annum. And lastly, I'd like to highlight the 700 million that is directed to the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies vote for the operations of the state-owned signal distributor Syntec. Now, this allocation does come amid some disputes between Syntec and the SABC over the protracted backlog of unpaid distribution fees, which have amounted to approximately 1.6 billion rand. Chair, honorable members, this brings me to the recommendations by the Commission. So firstly, with respect to the 2026 Appropriation Bill, here the Commission recommends that departments need to align their budget submissions more closely with actual expenditure patterns and announce policy reforms. Secondly, the Commission reiterates what it has outlined in the 2025 medium-term budget policy statements and recommends that government's infrastructure prioritization over the MTEF period needs to be accompanied by robust project delivery across the whole infrastructure project lifecycle. And then lastly, the Commission does recommend that the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education and Training, in collaboration with the Department of Higher Education and Training and other stakeholders, including organized labor and professional bodies, conducts a comprehensive review of all SETAs to help in the elimination of overlapping functions and duplication, and that these SETAs can more closely align training with the actual demands of the economy. And with regards to the 2026 Special Appropriation Bill, the Commission recommends that, given process prior history of procurement irregularities and financial mismanagement, that the Parliament, through the Portfolio Committee on Transport, as well as the Standing and Select Committees on Appropriation, need to exercise rigorous oversight of that 5.8 billion allocation for rolling stock renewal, including regular progress updates and measurable progress when it comes to increasing process annual passenger trips. Thank you, Chair and honorable members. This concludes the submission by the FFC.
Thank you, Chairperson. We are handing over to you on our side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues from FFC led by Dr. Mbava. Honorable members, it's now your turn to engage on the two presentations. I will start by noting hands. I see Honorable Ndlovu, Honorable Brett, Honorable Siwisa. Those are the first three hands that I've noted. Honorable Ndlovu, you are invited to make your input.
Thanks, Honorable Chairperson, and good evening to your good self, Dr. Mbava and your team. Good evening, and Mr. Mashudu. From my apologies, I don't remember catching the person who's leading the National Treasury, but safe to say, good evening to everyone. Chair, I don't want to go to the preambles, on the role of the Select Committee in terms of in line with the FFC and the National Treasury. I just want to go straight to the questions because it's late now and we have a long day today. Chair, on the slide 14, the fiscal credibility and budget alignment. The FFC notes inconsistency between allocation and historical expenditure patterns, including significant underspending in certain votes, such as the credit guarantee vehicle and communication. So my question is, in the Commission's view, to what extent do the allocation in the special appropriation bill reflect credible budget, given the persistent misalignment between past expenditure performance and current budget increase? My apologies. The other question, Chair, is on the infrastructure prioritization and execution risk, which is on slide 14. A significant portion of funding, that is 8.3 billion, is allocated to Transnet-related rail corridor infrastructure aimed at improving freight logistics. How does the Commission assess the likelihood that this infrastructure investment will translate into improved logistic performance, given historic challenges in project execution and coordination? The other question, Chair, while I'm still on the FFC, is on the budget deviation and planning weakness. That is on the slide 9 to 12. The Commission highlights deviation between actual expenditure and budget allocation, including both underspending and overspending across key sectors. How should Parliament respond to persistent budget deviation, and what reforms are required to strengthen planning, forecasting, and expenditure management across departments? That is That was my, sorry, Chair, my last question also on the FFC, on the long-term fiscal sustainability. While infrastructure investment is prioritized, the broader fiscal environment remains constrained with competing pressures, including debt servicing and social expenditure. The question in this regard is, in the Commission's assessment, how do this special appropriation impact long-term fiscal sustainability, and what trade-offs may arise for other critical service delivery priorities? Chair, as I go to the National Treasury, the overall fiscal framework and legislation basis. On slide 2, the bill appropriates 13.519 billion. 13.519 billion from the contingency reserves and 8,498 billion under Section 73(2) of the Constitution for expenditure that cannot be reasonably delayed. In addition, Section 16 of the Public Finance Management Act provides for the use of funds in case of exceptional, unforeseeable, and unavoidable expenditure, subject to strict reporting and subsequent parliamentary appropriation. What specific, that is my question now, what specific criteria and governance processes were applied by National Treasury to determine? Can you hear me?
Yes, you are
Chair?
audible, Honorable Ndlovu, as you wrap up.
Okay, yes. To determine that the schedule to chair, we had 2 presentations, so I started with the FFC. Now I'm on the National Treasury. Thanks very much. Determine that the Schedule 2 allocation meet the constitutional threshold of expenditure that cannot be reasonably delayed, and how does this safeguard against the misuse of special appropriation in the future? Chair, my last question on the Schedule 1 allocation, expenditure efficiency and impact, that is on the slides 3 to 7, an amount of 281 billion in allocation for the rebuilding of Parliament to support agent rehabilitation and reconstruction. The bill allocates funding for the rebuilding of Parliament, which is a critical national infrastructure project. However, there are indications that the project is already experiencing delays. The question 4 is, that is, given that the rebuilding of Parliament is reportedly already behind schedule, what are the primary causes of this delay? What remedial action have been implemented to recover lost time? And what revised timelines and milestones has National Treasury approved along with these funds to ensure project completion? What consequence management measures will be enforced against implementing agents, contractors, or officials responsible for the delay? And how will National Treasury ensure that continued delay do not result in cost escalation or further fiscal pressure? The Chair, what are the quantified cost implications arising from the current delay in the rebuilding of Parliament, including any cost overruns, variation orders, or contractual penalties? And how are these additional costs being funded within the existing fiscal framework? To what extent have the current delays triggered cost variation or contract amendment? And how is National Treasury ensuring that this do not translate into unjustified cost overruns or inefficient expenditure? I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Ndlovu. I wouldn't have done justice to cut you off on your last question.
Thank you.
You are a co-chairperson of the Financial Management of Parliament. Honorable Brits, you are now recognized.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and good evening to everybody on this platform, especially to my colleagues in the Select Committee, as well as the officials from National Treasury, as well as the FFC. First of all, let me say thank you to Mr. Tseng from the FFC. Once again, sir, you've nailed the nail on the head in your introductory remarks. On that note, the FFC made reference to magistrate salaries as well as judges' salaries. Now, that is not the subject of tonight's appropriation bill discussions, but as a commissioner of the Magistrates Commission, I just need to make the comment that magistrates do the same work as judges to a large extent, but the remuneration after 32 years of being an independent judiciary is still not the same, and in future that should be addressed. Coming to my questions to especially National Treasury, I note that 1.116 billion rand is set aside and allocated for the local government elections that will be held later on this year. Will this amount be sufficient to cover all costs, or will further funding be required later on in the year to fund the election? Then secondly, 1.8 billion rand is allocated to capitalize the credit guarantee vehicle, which is aimed at de-risking infrastructure and crowding in private investment. Now, my question is, what is the leverage ratio of private sector investment relative to this specific public contribution that we are going to make? And what safeguards are in place to mitigate contingent fiscal risks arising from this credit guarantee vehicle as the vehicle for the transfer? Fourthly, Madam Chair, also directed to National Treasury, 700 million rand is allocated to pay Centec and to address the risk that was caused by the SABC's outstanding debt. Now, my question is, after this 700 million rand is paid to Centec, how much will the SABC still owe Centec, and how will this payment affect the operations of the SABC in future? Fifthly, Madam Chair, also addressed to National Treasury, I note that 5.78 billion rand is allocated to PRASA. Now, I do believe that this amount is in respect of a 10-year-old contract for building of train sets. How much of this money has already been paid over to the contractor in terms of the existing contract? And after this 5.78 billion rand payment, how much is still owed? Then lastly, Chair, regarding the rebuilding of Parliament. Now, we've noted in the press yesterday and the day before that certain allegations were made following the Auditor General's report on this specific rebuilding Parliament project. Now, the initial amount that was allocated to rebuild Parliament was 2 billion rands in 2022, and it increased to over 4 billion rand currently. Now, what is of grave concern, and I think the public in general demands an answer and is required an answer. It was alleged that 86,000 rands was spent in respect of peanut butter, 382,000 rands were spent in respect of cell phone claims, and international accommodation to the tune of 217,000 rands. Now, Madam Chair, my question to National Treasury, these amounts are dubious, and as I said, the public demands an answer. What caused the rise, the drastic rise of over 100% in the cost to rebuild Parliament, and how can the future cost be curbed and kept at bay? So those are my questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Brits. Honorable Siwisa.
No, thank you, Chair. Thank you to National Treasury and to FFC for their presentation. Chairperson, I'm happy that the National Treasury in their report, they included the rebuilding of Parliament, which when I was sitting in the Parliament committee pertaining to the rebuilding, there are some questions that are raised, which I saw at the time that it's a wasteful expenditure or is going to be a fruitless expenditure, which is going to even delay. What the National Treasury is saying today is what I've raised to say that there's going to be a delay because there is no consequence management that has been put in place. And in light of the recent news that have come up pertaining to the Secretary to Parliament, it raises a lot of questions, Chairperson. And I'm happy that in their report or in their presentation, according to the schedules, they actually touched on the issue of the rebuilding of Parliament. And we already have a delay, irrespective of the 2 billion that has been allocated. It means that more money is going to be spent. As it has been stated by Honorable Ndlovu that there are delays there. We've got issues pertaining to escalation of costs that are going to arise as the time goes on. Are there any revised timelines that have been put in place that the National Treasury is aware of pertaining to the rebuilding of Parliament? And have they been approved by the National Treasury? How will this affect the cost escalation? Because if there's a delay, Chairperson, it means that we need to relook at the timelines that have been put forward by the executive authority, which is the Speaker of National Assembly, which is the chairperson of the NCOP, which is the Secretary to Parliament. It means that if there are delays, we need to revise the timelines. Have those timelines have been presented to National Treasury, and has the National Treasury actually approved those timelines? What will the cost be if we review the timelines to the completion of the rebuilding of Parliament? And we can't speak about the rebuilding of Parliament without mentioning the installation of the dome, because every time there are some things that need to happen to make sure that the dome is fully functional. So all of those issues, Chairperson, has the National Treasury been briefed about those? What are the new allocations that they are estimating that is going to cost for Parliament to be completed? Have they been provided with the timelines as today by this time? Because of there are already delays, these are the new timelines. This is what's going to cause, because right now we are speaking about the allocation, but we need to look into the future. Can we be provided with the quantified cost implications arising from the current delays of the rebuild, not excluding the cost overruns, the variation orders, and the contractual penalties? Because even if 2 billion is being allocated, Chairperson, we cannot speak about the 2 billion without addressing the issues that I've been mentioning. So is the timelines, how is it going to affect the contractual penalties and the overruns and the variation orders? Because, Chair, if you can remember, one of the issues that we fought about in the Northwest is the VOs and what it costs for those projects to be finished in the Northwest. So those are my questions for now, Chairperson. I hope that if we cannot get a full response right now, if it can come in written form, it will be very appreciated, Chairperson, so that we have a documented evidence to say that this is what the National Treasury has said to the committee pertaining to the rebuilding of Parliament. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Sibisa. Honorable Majola.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you both National Treasury and FFC for the presentation. Madam Chair, I will be very quick. In fact, I've got only one question. I've been covered by the previous colleagues with regards to other questions. My remaining question, Madam Chair, is that we are right in the middle of the budget processes 2026, 2027, including the appropriation bill. I want to check, Madam Chair, with regards to the Schedule 1, in particular, volume vote 2 and vote 5, because we knew 5 years ago that we are going to have election in 2026, and the rebuilding of Parliament, Madam Chair, is an ongoing project. I want to check with regards to the National Treasury whether using the Special Appropriation Bill 25-26, is it not a substitute of poor management? Because I believe we should be appropriating properly on the 2026-2027 appropriation bill. That is my question, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Majola. Honorable Ryder.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I must apologize. I don't look as smart as the Honourable Brits, but it seems like he didn't have a long day like the rest of us had today. And he's still looking really dapper. Looks like he's going out for dinner or something. Anyway, let's help him get there sooner rather than later. Chair, let me not waffle. Treasury, thank you for your presentation. There's a couple of things that I want to point out, but again, yes, I've been largely covered by many good questions from colleagues. The issue around the money that's going to Centric is quite interesting to me. And it speaks to a principle. And the fact is that one of the comments that was made is that we need to assist Centric with some money because SABC owes them a huge chunk of change. So my concern is this. If National Treasury gives Centric the money directly, and there's no compensation on the balance sheet of SABC, effectively it's kind of double accounting or double dipping, something like that. And we're not impacting the balance sheet of SABC because I think there's probably some assistance that they could derive from this. So I mean, rather than essentially directly bailing out Centric, you bail out the SABC rather. Now, I don't think we like bailouts at all, but when we do bailouts, it should actually, follow the right process. And by further labouring the SABC with interest charges and a burden on their balance sheet, would it not be more sensible to actually direct the funding via SABC to Centric? To ensure that everyone wins. This is important because the same applies when we talk about giving Eskom bailout monies, and hopefully we won't be doing that ever again. But in the past, where we've bailed Eskom out because local governments have not been adhering to their commitments, their financial commitments in terms of their paying their dues to Eskom. Bailing Eskom out has left many municipalities still struggling with unmanageable legacy debts that were run up by people that stole the money a long time ago. And your incumbent mayors now are sitting with neither the proceeds of the crime that their mates got away with, but nor a solution which will enable them to do service delivery. So it's a principal matter that I'm trying to get to the bottom of. When we apply bailouts because there are monies owed by another sphere of government or quasi-government institution, surely we should do it via the right place so that all the balance sheets end up looking more correct, and that the burden isn't lying with people that it shouldn't. That's part one. The next thing I want to get to, and it's a principal matter again, and specifically PROS is the one I want to pick out on it. But what are the conditions that are going with this funding? Because I think that we have seen that the daily trips of passenger rail in South Africa have dropped to tiny little amounts. I think it was less than 10% of what they historically were, because PROS is not able to operate. So what conditions? And I kind of accept that passenger rail internationally is something that to less or greater extent receive some level of subsidization from the national fiscus. But to what extent are we placing conditions on the payment of this amount across to PROSA? And I guess the same would go to Centec or SABC or whoever else we're giving money to at this stage. Those conditions are really important. And the fact is that as a committee, if there are conditions placed on these bailouts or advances or whatever you want to call them, then certainly we should be privy to that information so that we can monitor these things. Because a condition is only a condition if it is complied with, monitored, and the conditions are enforced. It's all good and well to place conditions on an advance, and then forget about the conditions. You may as well not have had those conditions. So I do think it's important that we as a committee are made aware of exactly what those behind the scenes discussions are, that they can come in front of the scenes, and also so that the taxpayers and the people of South Africa who are foregoing other service or service in other places in order to fund these transactions should be knowing what conditions are in place, and what they can expect as a result. And we must never forget, for every cent that we appropriate to a state-owned company, it's taking money out of service delivery in some other space. It's not as if there's suddenly a whack more money. This is money that's being shifted around from other service delivery matters into these particular transactions. Chairperson, I then want to pick out the FFC. As indicated, it's been a long day, and I might be feeling a little bit tetchy, but slide 13 of the FFC's presentation was, I believe, a little bit mischievous. And I'd like to give the FFC an opportunity to explain what they were trying to portray on slide 13. There's an item there that shows, and as Honourable Britt said, it's got nothing to do with what's being discussed tonight as far as I'm concerned, but there wasn't a graph there, and it had members of Parliament's salaries with a 40% above expected expenditure. That was the impression that was created by the slide. There was no explanatory comment, there was no explanatory note either on that particular slide. And I do want to caution against the fact that, jumping on these populist sentiments is extremely dangerous. Members of Parliament are not overpaid, they're underpaid generally, certainly for those that actually do their work. Some members are overpaid because they don't do anything, they're not effective. But by far the majority of MPs actually are very effective in what they do and could be earning far more, and I speak for myself here as well, could be earning far more in the private sector than we are earning as members of Parliament. And that was portrayed just now recently in social media when somebody leaked the MPs' payslips, purportedly to stir the pot in terms of what is paid for the Acacia Park accommodation, and where many people actually said, "My word, is that all an MP earns? I wouldn't be doing that work for that amount." So it was a bit of a mischievous thing, and I'd like FFC to just explain what they were trying to achieve with that slide, because I believe it creates the wrong impression. There was no sudden increase to MP salaries. That wasn't planned or expected. There was no over expenditure as far as I'm concerned. And when you look at the other items on that particular graph, that certainly is an anomaly. So, if we can deal with that, please. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ryder. I will start with National Treasury to kindly respond to the submission by members.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm going to ask the team to come in first, and then I will sweep up. So we will start with the questions around PRASA and communications. So Prabetsi Maleka will come in on that. On Parliament, we'll have Mohatla Tema come in, and then I'll sweep up anything else. So I'm going to ask my colleagues to please come in, and then I'll come in. Thank you.
I can't seem to get my camera right this afternoon. I don't know if I'm visible at all.
You are not that clear. We see your light, but you may switch your camera off and continue with your responses.
All right, thank you, Chair, and good afternoon. Good evening. Few issues to touch on. Maybe on the overspending reported by FFC, I think that's one of the things that we'll look at some other time, but we didn't have the 5.6% overspending on the transport vote in 24-25. Let me look at the questions from Honorable Ndlovu regarding the threshold. Okay, first the threshold that we need to be met by Schedule 2 allocations. Just to give a kind of an example in terms of whether this is an urgent matter or not, we look at, if I give an example of Centec and PRASA, in the case of Centec, we are sitting in a situation where the entities is at risk of meeting its going concerns matters because of the kind of debt that they have, and they will not be able to continue to deliver service to SABC if they're not assisted in the current state. So to address that challenge that they are facing, this allocation was made. Again, it comes with a number of conditions, and some of the conditions include the fact that they need to improve their debt collection mechanisms. They also need to find a better strategy to be able to finance the dual elimination coverage, which is also one of the factors that is landing them in this kind of crisis, which is also not a crisis of their own, because the process has been highly litigious in a way that it has enabled them and made it impossible for them to use one channel, and the cost that comes from this process are exorbitant for them. So at this stage, they're in a situation where they need to be assisted to be able to continue. This is also the concern that is shared by the Department of Communications and Technologies. So for operational and for going concern's sake, this is an urgent matter that needs to be addressed in this financial year. Again, with PRASA had a gap. This 5.8 billion that we're talking about for Gibela, for rolling stock, is a gap that needs to be addressed. And if they're not able to meet this debt that they have, which is a commitment that they have with the manufacturer, which is Gibela, it have ripple effects on the part of Gibela. And to try and manage that, we have made this accommodation and then this recommendation for the committee to consider this kind of interventions that we see as urgent. This is just an example of how significant it's felt that this should be covered in this financial year, and hence they are also incorporated in Schedule 2. So for Centec again, Honorable Ryder raises concerns around whether it should be financed directly or whether it should be SABC that is bailed out in this kind of setting. So the history between Centec and SABC is a little complex, and is a matter that the department itself is navigating and is also mediating between the two entities. In the past year, efforts were made to make shifts within the department itself towards SABC to enable SABC to settle part of its debt to Centec, and those payments were not made as per agreement. So, and part of the reason that did not happen is also because SABC is significantly busy with its finance. Again, one of the conditions or two of the conditions that have been set as part of the Centec allocation is that the department and SABC need to speed up its financing model, which they've already drafts, and we are hoping that will help SABC have a better plan in terms of intervention. It may not necessarily address all the challenges they have in the short term and medium term, but the plan is where the fiscals comes in, it should also be topping up efforts that are already in place within the entity and also driven by the department itself. So for PRASA, again, is in line with the question that come from Honorable Brez. For PRASA, what we have also allocated in the medium term or proposed for the allocation in the medium term, we expect something like 31 billion to still go towards the rolling stock. We still expect over 330 trains to be delivered. And yes, there are several conditions that PRASA has to meet, and that include the review of the contracts, that they have to be sure that the costs are in line with what government has committed to provide from the budget. But again, to also renegotiate the contract where possible to make sure that the delivery and the flow of the rolling stock is in line with what PRASA will be able to put to immediate use. What am I skipping? Yes, the other condition that I forgot to mention is, of course, is also indicated in the expenditure of estimate of national expenditure, is that PRASA will be monitored on how far they move in terms of the increase of ridership. So we expect them to gradually increase ridership, especially as the signaling also is improved, because that has been one of the problems that have been affecting the speed and also the frequency of trains. Let me pause here, and I'm sure Ulrike will be adding things that I may have omitted. Thank you.
Thank you, Pepetse. Chair, one of my colleagues doesn't have electricity, so I'll come in for her. Just in relation to, and I'm going to go down the list. So just in relation to Honorable Ndlovu's question around the safeguards and the authority around all of this, around the Schedule 2 allocations. So this is done in terms of Section 73 of the Constitution, where the Minister of Finance is able to table appropriation bill in Parliament for the use of any of the state funds. One of the things I think that's important to understand is in the policy context of what it is that we're doing here. The first would be in relation to provisions that are already included. So in relation to the Schedule 1 allocations, that was already in the fiscal framework that was approved by Parliament at the time of the NTBPS. That fiscal framework included a contingency reserve for these allocations. So that was already provided for. And then we used Section 6 of the Appropriation Act to allocate those funds in the way that it is provided for, specifically in 6.1c, where there is no prejudice to the state and it's in the public interest, and the limitations around the fact that this is then linked to the contingency reserve, or the contingency reserve. In relation to the questions around Parliament that was raised by both Honorable Ndlovu and Honorable Sirisa, I think there's two important things to remember when it comes to Parliament, is that we don't have the same oversight authority over Parliament that we are given in the PFMA that sits within the Financial Management of Parliament and the Provincial Legislatures Act. So the levers that we have around managing public finances are limited, and that is in relation to Parliament's independence. And I think that's an important principle for us to recognize. Notwithstanding all of that, we do participate in some of the work that's happening around the rebuilding of Parliament. And there are two things that we can confirm around all of this. The first is that part of the increase in the allocations or the increase in the costs related into marginal changes in the scope of the project that didn't only go into kind of rebuilding some of the damaged the damaged buildings, but it also goes into the refurbishment of some of the offices that's associated with that. So we are using this as an opportunity to deal with all of that. That scope increase then meant that the project budget increased to 4.6 billion rand. We think that it is fully funded. And based on the reports that we are getting, we expect all of that work to be done by the end of the year. So, the authority around approving increased allocations, I mean, that is what Parliament really does in terms of your powers to appropriate an act of Parliament to withdraw funds from the National Revenue Fund. And the second around all of that is that any of those shifts and timelines we have no authority over. Even if there were an institution within the PFMA, the PFMA requires, so for example, this would be for other departments and spending agencies, that in terms of Section 38(1) for departments and 51(1) for public entities, that they are able to manage their affairs in a way that is efficient and effective. This also includes how they manage capital programs and decisions that they take before they invest in capital programs, and around the efficiency and effective management of, amongst other things, expenditure. So those do exist, but a lot of that sits within the authority of accounting officers and what they then have to report on. Just in relation to Honourable Business question around the local government elections. So this is a top-up from what we had already allocated as part of the 2025 MTF. That would then help, that helps the IEC in meeting its objectives. This goes into ensuring that they're able to run a voter registration campaign, that they're able to kind of upgrade the equipment so that the problems that we had in the 2024 national elections don't reoccur, and other operational expenditures. Part of those operational expenditures includes the uncertainty around the date. The dates have still not been proclaimed, so how long you have to keep additional staff is all dependent on when the elections happen, and those costs are fully covered in here. We don't anticipate any further shortfalls from the IEC around the running of the local government elections. In relation to the credit guarantee vehicle and the leverage ratio, so this 1.8 billion rand for the credit guarantee vehicle is South Africa's government's equity contribution, and if I remember correctly, it's 20%, but I stand corrected on that, of the full scheme, of the full. So the credit guarantee vehicle will be a private company. Government takes a 20% shareholding in that company. The first round, so what the leverage ratios all depends on the risk associated with each of those projects. So it depends on the risk profile of the spending entity, a risk profile of those projects itself. The first group of projects that we anticipate to come through the scheme would be the transmission project, so the upgrades that are needed around an expansion of transmission infrastructure. What this does is it replaces the sovereign guarantees that we have in the system. So, for example, in the Renewable Energy Independent Power Producer Program, all those sovereign guarantees, and I don't have a budget review in front of me, was provided by government. So it increased government's contingent liability. And so given that there's a maturing market, you are able to now transfer those guarantees. So instead of the sovereign taking this risk on, this is the credit guarantee vehicle will take that risk on. And it will all depend so on who the private, and this is really to the private party that we provide, that the CGV will provide these guarantees to. So there's no one leverage or one ratio around all of this. It will depend on the risk profile of the relevant off-taker, the relevant project sponsor around all of this, and the sector that the sector that we are investing in, and some of the regulatory issues around all of that, that would then bring about, and what it really does is it brings about interest rate relief, because that premium is now being reduced, that would lower the cost of financing for the private sector to take this up. So I don't have a direct answer for you, But once there is some modeling around all of this, and we can ask our colleagues in our ALM team to certainly help us with a write-up that gives you a sense of what those benefits look like. Just in relation to, I mean, while Pudetse covered some issues around Centec and PRASA, I think there are two things that's important to remember around Centec and the SABC. The first is that both Centec and the SABC, so if we're talking about financial governance, they both have responsibilities in terms of Section 51(1) of the PFMA, one on Centec side to collect revenue that is due to it, and on SABC side, it has an obligation to pay its debts. It's the same provision that deals with this. I mean, in terms of Section 83 of the PFMA, a breach of Section 51 of the PFMA constitutes financial misconduct. So there's no direct balance sheet relief to either of them. This is almost like a stopgap in relation to what you are able on trying to, while they resolve the financial governance issues and how they're going to kind of deal with whether it's a payment arrangement or whatever that helps both Centec and the SABC around all of this. There's a cash crunch within Centec, and this just helps them with all of that. If from a money point of view, Centec bills SABC around 70 million rand a month. So this 700 million rand would help them for 10 months while they iron out and come to some agreement around all of this. SABC will still owe Centec the 1.6 billion rand that it owes Centec. And the question is, how do you make this a little bit more kind of smoother for both of them in a way that it doesn't kind of bankrupt both of them? But it's important that what we need to do here is we have to restore those financial governance principles from the PFMA, and this is not seen as us rewarding bad behavior. On the PRASA contract, so let me just say what's important to understand about the PRASA contract is that obligations become due on the delivery of trains. So, for example, PRASA there's a contractual obligation for them to take delivery of 62 trains in the 2025-26 year. We've paid 4.7 billion or 4.6 billion rand has already been paid. So this helps them get to the 62 trains. There is a small shortfall, but there are retentions, and in the way the contract works, that means that some of this can be rolled over. Just to say that this is part of a fiscal commitment that was made in 2014 of 53 billion rand in 2014 prices. So when we talk about adjusting some of the what's left on this contract and having to renegotiate some of the contract, there are a couple of discrepancies between what the fiscal commitment is and what the contractual obligation is. And PRASA needs to renegotiate that in a way that it still comes within the fiscal commitment. So the fiscal commitment was gazetted by the Minister of Finance in April 2014 for the 53 billion rand in 2014 prices to be adjusted by CPI. That is only for the manufacturer supply agreement. It wasn't for the technical spares part component of this. And there are also issues around foreign exchange that comes into play here, and the foreign exchange risk that government then takes on from delivery of train 104, which happened about 2 years ago. That's really what we will still be paying for the delivery of those trains, any of the CPI adjustments and any of the foreign exchange adjustments that goes with all of that. To Honorable Majola's questions around why this, and is this a function of poor planning? Well, if we could all predict the future, then maybe a little bit more reliably, then maybe it would be a function of poor planning. But there comes opportunities within the budget to kind of resolve very specific problems that we have in the system. I mean, the first part of the special appropriation comes from what we had already known we needed to do at the time of the NGBPS. So I wouldn't say that that is poor planning. The second part of the scheme comes about from an opportunity that you are able to use the fiscus when we have additional revenue available to de-risk some of those big one-off allocations that come up. This is, and when you look at that, with the exception of the rolling stock contract, all of those other allocations are really one-off allocations that you are able to kind of reduce any of the risks in the fiscus, whereas there's a different kind of risk that sits around the PRASA 5.8 billion rand. This is a contractual obligation for trains that have already been manufactured but can't be delivered. And we will use those kinds of opportunities to ensure that we are able to meet some of the obligations that government has in place through these kinds of once-off allocations that we've made. Just the last, I didn't answer Honorable Suisa's question around the dome and the functionality of the dome. So in the adjustments budget, we included funds to Parliament to ensure that the dome becomes fully functional. And there's a sharing agreement between Parliament and Public Works around the costs associated with that. So we expect all of that to be completed in line with the requirements that was presented to us at the time of the NGBPS. And then the last question was a general one from, I suppose, in around conditions of funding for allocations that we have. So Section 4 of the Appropriation Act empowers the Minister of Finance to set conditions to allocations. The allocations for PRASA around the rolling stock renewal contract, I mean, part of this is that it's an obligation, but we do have general conditions that we set for PRASA as part of the normal budgeting process on how they report on things, what it is that they need to do, the separation of its spending. For example, we want to see specific cash flows for various components within its budget. We want a regional breakdown of its operating expenditures for Metro Rail, and that helps us understand that if we ever get to a point where functions are devolved, what the funding envelope is that needs to shift with those functions. On the Centec one, I mean, we've written specifically saying that Centec must continue to pursue its responsibilities that are set out in Section 51 of the PFMA, and this in no way replaces those allocations or their requirement and responsibilities that they have in collecting funds that is due to them. So there are general conditions that we have. I mean, there's a long list of what we normally include as part of the annual process, where there are specific, for example, on the budget facility for infrastructure allocations that are being made. There are specific conditions for Transnet and the DBSA that will have to be met for funds to then flow in a way that ensures that those projects continue. Just in the context of those BFI projects, if you want to think about how it's leveraging funding, the 8.3 billion rand for rail should leverage another 12 billion rand of private sector investment that then gets us to not only, and that these projects will eventually go into the market as PPPs. So those requirements are set out there. These conditionalities that sit on the infrastructure fund as the fund manager around what they do, how any of these surplus funds get invested and how it gets treated. These reporting requirements around all of this that we then set beyond what is provided for in sections 32 and sections 40 of the PFMA. For example, the BFI allocations for the Transnet projects can only be used for those projects. It's not a general pot of funding that we have for Transnet. There's requirements when there are variations or when project costs or when there are escalations, and they'd have to come back to the National Treasury for approval around those escalations. So it's a standard thing that we do. And one of the things that we probably have to do a little bit better is report to Parliament consistently on this as part of our quarterly expenditure report. Let me stop there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mbaba.
Yes, thank you so much, Chairperson. I would just like our researcher just to quickly show slide 13, so we can clarify what is slide 13 all about, and then we can get into the other questions as well. Slide 13 is the direct charges against the National Revenue Fund. Essentially, the slide provides a breakdown of mandatory expenditures for 2026-27 that are paid directly from the National Revenue Fund rather than through the departmental votes. So essentially, these are charges that must be paid first before we allocate anything, before we appropriate anything. We must first pay these charges. So these total about 1.16 trillion of our budget. So the largest quantum here is the debt service cost. And then it's the largest, it is a debt service cost, and then also the provincial equitable share, the skills levy, general fuel levy. So the political remuneration is negligible. It's actually zero. It's not even impactful if you look at the total amount that is being allocated here. So what we're trying to show here, honorable members, is that before you even do your appropriation, this is what must be first be paid from the National Revenue Fund. So 1.16 trillion must first be allocated to these mandatory allocations first. Then afterwards, you can do your appropriation bills. The appropriation bill, the bill we're speaking about now, comes later. So it actually gives you a full picture to say what are the priority spendings of government. And then we also have a bar chart at the bottom there, which also show the difference between 2025 and the 2026 budget. So essentially, this is just a table that shows what is the first priority when it comes to the allocation. It is the payments that government is mandated to make in terms of the National Revenue Fund. After we've made those payments, we can then go ahead and do the appropriation. We cannot do the appropriations first until we've done these payments. It just shows that. And also the political payments, it's actually 0% if you compare to the other quantum costs here, which are debt service costs or the provincial equitable share. Thank you so much. Chen, if you can go ahead now with the other questions, please. Thank you.
Honorable Chair, I see Honorable Ryder has got his hand up. I don't know if you'd like to take his follow-up, or otherwise, if I may give my fair shot at explaining.
Colleagues, let's allow them to respond, and then you'll come up with your follow-up questions. FFC, just your responses.
Yes, thank you so much, Chen. Yes, thank you so much, Chair. So we will continue then. Chen, over to you. And if there are any commissioners on the platform, I'm not aware of any, I don't see. If there are any who wants to come in as well, they are welcome to during our time. Thank you so much. Over to you, Chen.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Honourable Member, for giving me the opportunity. Just following my chairperson's sort of first point is exactly that. The quantum is negligible, number one, in the overall direct charge, the pool of the direct charge. Second, and coming to the graph, Honourable Member, let me just say, in a lay once and for all and clearly, is that it does not mean that it's, all of that is overpaid. Because what this graph actually also is saying is that potentially there have been under-budgeted item for members of parliament, right? Resulting over expenditure relative to the budget, to what was allocated. And this generally we see, and we also witnessed, you'll recall last year, the bar that we saw jumping out like a sore thumb was presidents and deputy president salaries. And this, so what I mean is that these things happens along with certain political events, such as an election. So things like this does need to be taken into account. The graph does not is not as a direct, representation of certain or any. These are analyzed data evidence, right? And so data on its own says it's open for interpretation. But what is, and actually, I think the value in human intellect and analysis, as economists and analysts are good at and supposed to be trained at, is to apply our minds in relation to the context and content of and the events in time in the real world in looking at these graphs. So, and I would say, coming back in just using this as a jumping board, is that I think as South Africa currently cannot afford to let up on the legislative power, right, and the oversight power of the legislature, i.e. Parliament, right? So if we look around, right, the executive branch is in a bit of a turmoil. Then what is our oversight duty then, right? It's heavy, and it's only going to get heavier. Maklanga Commission and other commissions into providing judicial or legislative powers and oversight powers over what happened in the executive branch. That is all here in this parliament, and also through the collective work of the committees, including especially of the finance committees of this STEAM committee, as well as and as well as other standing committees and so forth. So, not to mention also, by the way, of course, portfolio committees, right? That's supposed to oversee the performance and deliverables, returns. What are the values for money that have been exercised and delivered through the budget. So with those few words, I just want to come back to Honorable Glover's question about budget spending misalignment. Extent, massive. And how to cure it or how to try and manage it, I think there are two routes. One is exactly what this committee has been doing, right? Asking the tough questions that I really must appreciate and really applaud. That the questions had definitely gotten very, very poignant. Contracts, payments, service providers, who is paying whom, and cost escalations, implications of spending ambiguities as well as delays, right? These are the questions to ensure and ought to get an answer to by the executive on these misalignments between budget and spending. Therefore, when I come to the second advice in terms of how to deal with this misalignment is, right? First is, of course, carrying on and even stay focused on such, oversight questions on the executive, but to the executive. And of course, also, let me share also in solidarity with executive branch in having to deliver and answer these difficult questions. But second point is that in the bills, in particular, it may be useful, right, to add on not just say what the money is going to be used for, or this we were planning this already in the medium-term budget policy statement, or this thing was all the way back in 2014 that we already committed to, and I'm trying to remember who was the Minister of Finance at that time, and rather say what has been delivered, right, in this department or in this project, or if it's failed and delivered nothing, say it there. And almost having to build this governance track record of the special appropriation bill projects. And almost like what we actually currently already have, like in the grant frameworks of the divisional revenue bills, saying that back in 2024, 25, in the past 3 years, say, this grant had delivered so and so numbers of beds, so and so numbers of hospitals, and so forth, right? So similarly, coming to this special appropriation bill, it may be useful as a recommendation to the committee is to ask the executive branch, National Treasury, to prepare not just a special appropriation bill, 2-3 pager about what this money is going to be used for, but also about what had been the past performance of what this department is doing that warrants or substantiates, motivates for now granting these special appropriations or adjustments as as additions or minuses or to additions or adjustments to the budget. Now, coming then, I think I must really appreciate, because following Honorable Majola's question and also Honorable Ryder on the two things. Honorable Majola's points is about timelines. Key, right? Because this also follows from Honorable Siwisa's point about cost escalations and delays. Which year were we supposed to have been doing what, using when's allocated money? In this case, right? Is this for 25, 26, or is it 26, 27? And certainly we certainly should be very aware and very worried actually to hear special appropriations that emanate from things that happened way back in 2014. Which suggests to us, I think, as Honorable Siwisa picked up, is that that delay must have caused all this cost escalations, notwithstanding inflation. And by the way, the opportunity costs of all this time, not having received what we paid for or committed to, is absolutely devastating from a financial governance and performance failure. Indictment actually of the government. And second question, so one is timeline, that's Honorable Majola's point, and Honorable Ryder, very important as well, is who has been receiving money and why, and what direction or what positions are there to have received these money, and does it make sense? I'll say from FFC's research, years of it, and we have been highlighting it quite numerous times and consistently, is that, and may I read, especially on the issue of government guarantees, Section 218 of the Constitution, subsection 2. It says that national legislation referred to in this subsection about government guarantees may be enacted only after any recommendations of the Financial and Fiscal Commission have been considered. In our collection, memory, we have not seen, right, these consultations. We have not received the sort of the query or ask or for recommendations of the FFC on government guarantees specifically before it becomes implemented. For instance, that table of government guarantees in the budget review, that was not first having consulted the FFC before it is written there, right, to have been committed. All happened is that it just put in there, and then it comes to Parliament, gets approved, and then the money is going out through special appropriation and all that. And so without also leaning too much on the law that we have clearly have not been abiding or following in its full extent, or in the spirit of it at least, is the beneficiaries. These state-owned entities and government departments are paying left, right, and center to one another. Left hand paying right hand, right hand paying the left hand. And this is not just right now we're seeing SABC or Centec. I mean, it's all over the place. Senrail, DBSA, Gauteng Treasury, National Treasury. It's immense problems and ambiguities and transactions happening with very questionable performances of what has been delivered on these and what of the policies. So I encourage honorable chair members Stay focused, and as you have, you know, not to be sort of misdirected or sort of distracted from, oh, this is from way back, or this is for certain reasons, and this is very nice to have. But actually, just ask, as you have been, Honorable Chairman, as you have been doing, is ask those questions and ask whether it makes sense. And not just that, but also show you. We show, as this committee, esteemed committee, in exercising its oversight duties, ask the National Treasury, as you have, to show you what of the results. Earlier, we keep on saying that, also Honorable Ryder's point, the conditions are there, all right, and maybe it's good to be there, and it's important, of course, to be there, as FFC's recommendations said so, as well as advise so. Thank you for adopting it. But more importantly is, what of the results of these conditions? You see, conditions are useless if it does not give you the results, give us the results to those conditions before we now dish out the next batch of money, right? This is all part of the performance evaluation, the monitoring requirements that should be there and tracking. And so I also asked, therefore, this committee secretary in almost building this track record of these questions and answers, because I think I really appreciate, Honorable Chair members, your questions here are spot on. And someone ought to be helping this committee in tracking the questions and what were the answers that got, you know, that were received, that was given to you by the respondents. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Chair. I think that is our responses. We are handing over back to you for further deliberations.
Thank you very much, Team FFC. Mr. Ryder, you had a follow-up, and I also see the hand of Honorable Sibisa. Mr. Ryder, you may start.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, thank you to Dr. Mbava and Mr. Tseng for their responses to my concerns around page 13. Both of them actually reinforced exactly what I was saying. The bar graph on the right-hand side of that page is clearly creating an inappropriate perception. And as Mr. Tseng says, you know, people with economic training, etc., would interpret it appropriately and would be able to understand what I'm saying. Frankly, Chair, the detail on the graph is so sparse. But what it does do is it shows the MP salaries up at a 40, and it shows the entire interest repayment on debt, or debt repayment of the government, down at less than a 1. It's creating a bad impression for people that don't know any better. And I really just think that the graph itself was mischievous. As I indicated, I might be feeling a little bit tetchy, but I do think that including that was a little mischievous. Yeah, I hear your explanations, and they're all very logical. It doesn't take away from the fact that a man in the street that doesn't have any financial training, that looks at that graph, will go, oh, wow, look at those MPs they're coining it again. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Point taken. You'll get your response, Honorable Speaker.
No, thank you, Chair. You know, Chairperson, when it comes to Parliament budget, the financial Parliament budget, I'm a bit perplexed where I am as I'm standing, because I'm listening to the response from National Treasury, and I agree, and I'm happy that the FFC is agreeing with what I'm saying, to say any delays is going to cost, which means that more money is going to be spent. So now the response from National Treasury says the following: according to me, any scope of work should include all the work that needs to be done. And they're speaking that there's an adjustment or there's an appropriation that has been put in place because they had to reconsider the officers that were damaged. The officers were damaged from the onset. So the scope of work should have included the damaged officers, should have included that the MPs whose officers have been damaged, they need to look for alternative officers, which means that it's more budget, because there's a possibility that you are going to use property that does not belong to government. Any form, and then the scope of work should have included in the budget. And now my question is, has any form of site visit have been done by National Treasury to approve the allocation that has been presented? If there's a presentation that was done by Parliament to say that because of the following, we need additional funds, did they actually go on the ground to see that what Parliament, what the executive authority is asking for is actually going to speak to the money that they are asking for? The issue of shift of timelines, National Treasury says that they don't have control over that. But there's a contradicting response that says that the project will be finished at the end of the year. So now my question to National Treasury would be, if you are so adamant or you are so sure that the project will be finished by the end of this year, I'm not sure if it's the end of 2026 or if it's the end of the financial year 2026-2027. What timelines have informed you to come to this committee and tell this committee to say that the project will be finished either at the 31st of December or at the 31st of March 2027? If you do not have timelines that are in place, are there any mechanisms that have been put in place to verify the information that Parliament gave you to motivate for the special appropriation, Chairperson? Another issue that I need to raise is that National Treasury has indicated that additional funding is required due to the scope of change. What specifically triggered this scope of changes? Who approved them? And were these changes subjected to a formal cost benefit and affordable assessment before additional funds were made? National Treasury has stated that it does not control how Parliament manages its funds, but National Treasury must remember one thing, Chairperson, to say that they are the custodian of the financial fiscal of this country. So they can never come to this committee and say that they cannot control how Parliament manages its funds. It means that if they say that, the next thing that we are going to be told that National Treasury is going to tell us that we don't control how health or education or social development or human settlement or correctional services control their funds, which means that anybody can do whatever that they want with the money from national of the taxpayers. This is a comment and there's a question inside, Chairperson, but I would really appreciate to hear the response from National Treasury because, Chairperson, as you are standing right now, all of us we know as committee members, as honorable members, we are fully aware to know that Parliament is on the bridge of collapsing. And I'm going to make an example about the provincial weeks that we had, the kind of accommodation that we put in, the lack of transport that we put in. These are just the minor things that we are dealing with. But now I'm raising this issue because National Treasury came here to brief us about the allocation towards the rebuilding of Parliament. And we are not going to ignore that. One thing I love about this committee is that we follow where the money is. and people will have to come here and account. And National Treasury at some point will have to come back here and account. You can't come here and tell us that the project of the rebuilding of Parliament will be finished by the end of the year. I'm not sure whether it's end of 2026 or end of financial year 2026-27. And then you don't have a scope, you don't have a timeline, you don't have time frames. You can't tell us what are the implications of the funding that is going to be affected by the cost effects, by the delays, by the variation orders. And yet you tell us that according to you and according to the report that I'm telling you now, National Treasury, that you did not go and do oversight. That is going to verify to tell us that the building of Parliament will be finished by next year, the latest end of March. So we must not find ourselves, Chairperson, trying to tick off boxes. We are speaking here about money of taxpayers. We are speaking here of money of people that cannot even afford to build houses because of the tax that they have to pay to SARS. And then we are given responses to say we cannot control what Parliament does with its money. And yet you are the custodian of the funds of the state, and then you cannot give us a prominent. I want to find out the appropriation or the adjustment that was done. Did National Treasury actually go on the ground to see that the money that we are allocating, is it going to do the work that needs to be done? Is the project going to be finished on the time that it needs to be finished? Because if we can't do that now, Chairperson, then we are doomed. Then we are, if Parliament collapses, if we cannot control finances of Parliament, we are going to have a problem with provincial government. We are going to have a problem with local government. We are going to have an ongoing process or ongoing cases of corruption. That is why our local governments are collapsing, our local municipalities. But right now, it seems as if Parliament is going to be the one that's going to collapse. And we can't go out of this meeting without having a response that says, yes, we went on the ground. Yes, we verified what Parliament has requested. Yes, we approved based on the following reasons. Because, Chair, if you are going to leave this meeting or we don't get a response based on those issues, then we must simply know that Parliament is going to collapse. And I'm saying it now, and it must be noted. That building is not going to be finished by the 31st of 2027 March. I'm telling you now, and I'm going to raise it again in future when we are going to be told in this meeting to say that there's another adjustment that we need to do pertaining to the funding of the rebuilding of Parliament. So I'm happy that they brought it here because some of us, we don't sit in that committee. And it's going to be a burning issue from now. Every time when they come here, Chair, I want to tell National Treasury, I'm going to ask them about the progress, about the rebuilding of Parliament, because we a National Treasury gave Parliament money according to the adjustment and the appropriations bill. So they must know that from now on, they will have to tell us where is the money, what has happened, did they do follow up? Because we can't be dealing with a National Treasury that says that they cannot control what departments do with the money. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Siwisa. In short, what warranted this special adjustment on the financials of Parliament? Colleagues, I'm going to request that you respond, but shortly, Honorable Siwisa, as members of this Parliament, I don't think none of us will allow the collapse of Parliament while we are. Dr. Mbava, I'll start with your good self, then allow National Treasury to respond.
Thank you, sir. Chairperson, I would like to ask the research team if they have technical analysis of the issue to respond.
Thank you, Chair. I think notes well taken, and we'll make improvements on the visualization, as yes, it may be misinterpreted. On the others, I couldn't agree with that from a technical perspective. As I also tried to express, is that how important is just how important, how crucial, vital it is to have a functioning, well-funded, and supported parliament and legislature and oversight body in the three sphere, all the three branches of government arrangements that we have in our Republic of South Africa's constitution. Well taken. Thank you, Chair.
Over to you, Chairperson, from the FFC side. Thanks.
Okay. Tambava, colleagues from National Treasury, kindly respond to Honorable Sibisa.
Thank you, Chair. And I think there's a few things that we need to clarify here, because what Honorable Sibisa is asking us to do is to take over the responsibilities of the accounting officer of Parliament. So just to directly answer the questions, we got a budget submission with a plan from Parliament and its implementing agent on what is required to complete the project. That includes the extent of the works that needs to be done, with preliminary costs and timelines on when that will be done by. And on that basis, we had made a recommendation for Cabinet's consideration to approve an allocation to be tabled by the Minister of Finance as part of, at the time, the adjustments budget, because this is part of the contingency reserve that we then had included at the time of the MTBPS, so in the adjustments budget. Honorable Sibisa, we are not engineers. We are economists. We are, some of us are cost accountants, public administrators, and all sorts of things. So going on the ground and checking if the cost is worth what they say it is worth falls outside our area of expertise. The accounting officer responsibilities would be to ensure that money is spent efficiently and effectively. And the responsibilities of the accounting officer in relation to this project, based on the plan that was provided to us, is to ensure that all of those things happen. I think it's a very difficult thing for us to kind of answer on behalf of accounting officers when their responsibilities, both in the case of Parliament, in the Financial Management Act of Parliament, but in general for government departments, in terms of the PFMA, for us to do that. I mean, planning documents are for each of these departments set out their targets. The planning documents also set out critical priorities that they will have to do, and the budget that then funds that's associated with all of that. We monitor in that context. For Parliament, it is slightly different because the Financial Management Act of Parliament, and while we take the point around the Treasury's responsibilities that is set out in Section 6 of the PFMA, around coordinating the budget, ensuring that there's effective implementation of the PFMA, setting the norms and standards and all of that exists. But it doesn't go as far as us having to kind of take over the responsibilities of accounting officers. Accounting officers come and they account to Parliament in a specific way through their portfolio committees when they table their APP, when they table their annual report and all of those things. We look at that as part of the work that we do in understanding the efficiency and effectiveness of funding. But the accountability mechanisms still lie where they lie around all of this. So, and while we do have a plan and we do participate in the steering committee between the Department of Public Works, the DBSA, and Parliament around all of this, that allows us to track what is happening. The legal requirements here limits us in a way to intervene. So, for example, the Minister of Finance can't set conditions in the same way that the Minister of Finance sets conditions that allows us to use our enforcement mechanisms in the PFMA. And that's the difficulty around all of that. But it doesn't take away the accounting officer's responsibilities that are set out around all of these things and what they need to do to report on this. I mean, I'm not quite sure if Honorable Siwisa is asking us to maybe what we need to do is together with the implementing agent is set out what that looks like. And we are happy to do all of that. But I mean, this will just be information that we would source from Parliament and its implementing agent that we would bring here, and that goes beyond. Unfortunately, we don't have the skill set to kind of check the efficacy of the amount of structural steel that is needed, the amount of materials that is used, whether the labor that goes into all of that works. That is not our area of expertise, and we leave that up to
Ms. Britton, I think you are now just being somehow sarcastic in responding to the question. I am sure Honorable Siwisa is very much aware that your role will not go to an extent where engineers' responsibility is. So where you are able to explain your role to Honorable Siwisa to understand, please just do that and stop being sarcastic. I'm just going to request that we just become civil with each other and respect each other in responding and asking questions.
My apologies, Chair. That was not my intention. I am trying to be sincere around what it is that we can do and how do we clear the lines between the Treasury's responsibilities that are set out in Section 6 of the PFMA. And with your permission, Chair, should I read out what that is in relation to what it is that we do versus how departments then report on this in the various reporting mechanisms that exist. I'm going to take my cue from you on that, Chair.
I may say that you read, but the interpretation might not be the same. That's why I'm saying kindly explain to her your role in this process. I don't think it was necessary for you to go through and read because your interpretation and any member's interpretation might not be the same. I think colleagues, Honorable Siwisa, I don't see her on the platform.
I'm here, Chair. I'm just listening, Chair, because I fully agree with you. She could have just said, this is our role as National Treasury, because I never said there must be engineers, but at least follow the money. But let's not debate. Thank you very much.
Yes, Honorable Siwisa, I think she has fully clarified her role. I want us to stop it here because, colleagues, now we're entering in another debate that was not necessary, and the mood of the conversation is now becoming something else. I think when clarifying your role, colleague from National Treasury, you have explained how far you may go and how you can play your role in all these special appropriations processes and how the special appropriation to the funding of the Parliament's building goes as far as you've explained it. And I think Honorable Siwisa gets an idea of how far you may go. I think further deliberations can be taken in the next meetings because the mood now is getting out of hand of the meeting. And I'm sorry and I apologize for that. If maybe I've somehow touched a nerve to any of the honorable members or colleagues from the FFC or National Treasury, I sincerely apologize. But National Treasury, if you are satisfied with your responses, can I just take over? But if there's still something that you want to further clarify, you are welcome to do so in 2 minutes.
No, Chair, I think I had made my point around our responsibilities in the PFMA versus that of accounting officers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, colleagues from the National Treasury and FFC. Thanks for availing yourselves on a Tuesday afternoon or in the evening for us to deliberate on the special appropriations of 2025-26 financial year. We really appreciate you being available at all times when the committee sanctions you to their meetings. Your information, your sanctions, and the deliberations of the committee really, like I always say, it makes our work easy. Let me now release both the colleagues from the FFC and the National Treasury. And thank you very much once again, colleagues. You may vacate the platform. We really enjoyed the engagement. It was robust. Where we might have touched the nerves, kindly, we apologize for that and we'll try to do better next time. We really appreciate your presence. Thank you very much and good evening and good night to your good selves. Members of the committee, kindly stay behind as we'll be considering the report of the Oversight to Northwest and the 2 sets of minutes.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Estelle, I don't know if it's your good self or Mr. Dlomo that is going to take us through the inputs that were previously made by members on this report. Remember, the report has been with members for quite some time now. They made their inputs and there were issues that we requested the legal team of Parliament to iron out the inputs by members without taking anything out or adding anything to the report. So I don't know if it's Estelle or Mr. Dlomo that is going to take us through, especially the inputs made by members. And then I will take hands of members that would like to deliberate on the report.
Chair, I'll take over, Chair, on the input on the input on recommendation, Chair.
You may proceed. Thanks, Mr. Dlomo.
Yeah, because that's where the report was discussed, and that's where some changes were made.
Chairperson, so can I just move directly to the pages where the additions are? From
Please do
page...
that, Estelle.
Okay.
Then you may proceed, Mr. Dlomo. Colleagues, I think we are familiar with this report. We're only going to zoom into the inputs by members where you requested that inputs be made and where we requested assistance from the legal team.
Yeah.
Honorable Khatebe, welcome to the meeting. I am noting your presence. I see you've joined the meeting. Thank you. Mr. Dlomo?
Estelle, can you zoom into the Bopilong section? Because that's where the legal team has made some changes, some corrections, so to speak, on the Bopilong section on recommendations. Yes, go down on recommendations. On G, I think it's G. Go down a little bit. I wanna see something. You can go up. You can go up on the Bepolong recommendations. Do you mind if I open
Apologies.
if I open the report on my side in the meantime,
Okay.
Esty?
Okay.
Yes.
Can I just double check? So we're not going to go, because I've marked the pages where there are additions that haven't been adopted yet. It's basically page 18, 19, 20, 28, 90, 36, and then the last 3 pages. Are we not going to them in order of chronological order, I want to say? And then you can address Bopalong when we get there.
Get there.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
I'm just
Okay.
jumping around now.
Okay.
Yeah.
If the chair agrees, I think we can go that route.
I think it's gonna be easier that way, Mr. Lomo.
Okay. All right. Now let's go that route, SP, so that we can cover everybody. The first amendment that we made by Mr. Brits in 3.2.1. We've captured that amendment there. I'm not sure if we've captured it correctly. Where Mr. Britt said the committee noted with concerns the deliberate attempt by officials and other persons present on site to give incorrect, alternatively misleading information to the committee regarding A, how many construction workers are working on site, B, days on which workers are absent from the site due to attending meetings, C, employment of subcontractors, and D, expected completion date of the project. This was submitted by Mr. Brits. If members agree that it's correctly captured, then we can proceed. Sure. And maybe I should indicate, Chair, that we did not tamper with any of these recommendations other than those that had legal implications that were sent to legals.
Yes, Mr. Lomo, you may proceed. I see the hand of Honorable Khadebe, then Honorable Ryder.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Good evening, everyone on the platform. The administration of the committee, Lento, able to confirm that there was a deliberate attempt by the officials and other persons present on the site to give incorrect, alternative, misleading information. Because if it is like that, then it is criminal, because it's like misleading Parliament. There must be some sort of something like a perjury because of that. So did the administration of the committee confirm that there was a deliberate attempt of giving misleading information? Because if there's such, I think that it should be provided to the committee before we agree on this. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Khadebe. Mr. Ryder.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, look, I note Mr. Swart, Mr. Brits is back on, sorry. He fell off for a moment and I wanted to speak on his behalf. Because I think the amendment does capture what was discussed, but I see Mr. Brits is back and so I'd be reluctant to speak for him since he's present. Thank you.
Mr. Swart.
Sorry, Chairperson. I agree on what was said there, what Honourable Brits has brought to the attention, because I supported that, and that was a specific on-site there. I think I was specifically asked that specific question there, and I think some of the workers also. I think this is on this site where some of the workers came afterwards and explained what happened on that site. And that is exactly what is in blue written there now. Is Honourable Brits back?
Yes, Madam Chair, I am present. Sorry, I had a technical problem, but I'm back. Yes, 3.2.1 does capture what I've said on site on the day during our oversight visit. Everybody was present and everybody can recall what I've placed on record. And the gist, and that is in accordance with what is captured here, is that we were being misled on site on that specific day. And you will recall that caused huge dissatisfaction, not only with myself, but also with other members. So I insist that this inclusion will be included in the report.
Colleagues, can we remove the word deliberate and leave the paragraph as is? And I know, colleagues, we've sent this document to the legal team to assist us with the wording to make sure that we don't find ourselves in the wrong side of the law. Can we just remove the word deliberate?
Madam Chair, if I might come in here, it was placed on record that it was deliberate. You will also recall that during our discussions after this oversight meeting, I again reiterate and I again use the word deliberate because all the circumstances and the factual evidence that we saw was deliberate. So I insist that the inclusion of the word deliberate.
I agree with that, Chairperson. We can recall, or you can recall, that was on site where I also asked a specific question on what happened on that site. There was 2 or 3 groups working there, and they was just putting there the day before we came. And afterwards, we went to the combi, myself, Honorable Brits, Honorable Ryder, and Honorable Suisa. And some of the workers came to us and explained us, and they explained also to a group of people standing there. So that I agree with that.
Yes, I hear what you're saying, Honorable. Is it Honorable Swart? Honorable
Yes.
Swart, because I'm just struggling to get a distinction between an attempt and a deliberate. And if I was to be asked, why am I saying they were deliberate is misleading the committee, I don't remember what my response will be, because I thought if we say deliberate, somehow we are just rescuing ourselves. But I will take the last 2 hands on this issue, and then we'll see how best can we conclude with it. Mr. Khadebe, then Ms. Nlo.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. And then I'll have trouble if something was done outside the committee on the site. So the issue of deliberate, I don't think that this committee can be able to associate it with that term unless it is proven beyond reasonable, or if those people who spoke on the site were called into the meeting of the PC or of the select committee. I'll be comfortable with the issue of deliberate if those people can be recalled, those who spoke on the site, because we cannot have to entertain the side shows, because that's why we're going to have problems. Because when something happens on the site, it is not under the auspices of the select committee itself. It's not under the auspices of Parliament. It's like a whistleblower. Yes, the whistleblowers, some other time they have to come forward and put issues on the table as they are. I don't think, Chair, that you can allow the word deliberate, because what you must also remember that our constitution enjoys that there must be cooperative governance between the various spheres of government. I don't think that we can be able to afford to do that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Khadebe. Honorable Ndlovu.
Thank you, Chairperson. I wanted to come before Honorable Khadebe, but anyway, he has already spoken, because the question, his question was to say, can the officials confirm this? And I was waiting for anybody from the committee. to confirm this. Secondly, Chair, I want to correct Honorable Swart in saying Honorable Sibisa was not there. It was myself. It was on site, like outside deliberations, when people are angry, they want jobs. When you go inside the car, they will come and talk to whoever they feel that they can say whatever they want to say. It was myself, and I was there. They know that. It was not Honorable Suisa. So this was said not in that session, that meeting. It was when we went out, when people were tweaking whatever that they were saying, and it was not even tested, like as Honorable Khadebe is saying, being tested in the formal meeting. Maybe it's one of the things that has to be said. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ndlovu. Colleagues, I requested that those be the last hands on the topic. Colleagues, can we agree, Honorable Ndlovu, also I cannot allow the staff of the committee to take the responsibility or to take ownership of the report. This is our report, it's not their report. If something needs to be tested, maybe in the court of law, it will not be against the staff members, but the members of this committee. Comrades, can we, I'm sorry for that. Colleagues, can we agree that this is an allegation from the committee that it was a deliberate attempt? We are alleging that it was a deliberate attempt. We must not conclude that it was a deliberate. We must not conclude on it. We must just say we are alleging that there was a deliberate attempt by officials and other persons present, blah, blah, blah. Can I first take the hand of Honorable Siwisa and Honorable Ryder in less than a minute, because you had a bite. Honorable
No, thank you, Chair. What I wanted to say, Chairperson, I hope this report does not include what members of parliament were engaging on with individual or a group of workers in the absence of other members of parliament. That's what I wanted to raise, because I'm raising this. Honorable Ndlovu says that we engage certain people, and this is what came up. Honorable Siwisa was there. It means that even other members. So I hope that portion is not part of this report, because some of us, if you are going to be asked, as you are saying, if this thing goes to court, and some of us are asked, some of us are going to say we don't know anything. We were not part of the delegation that engaged those workers. But other than that, Chair, as it stands, as that clause or that paragraph stands, it's a true reflection. But anything, I'm just hoping that anything that was spoken outside of the whole delegation is not part of this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Siwisa. Honorable Ryder.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Yeah, Chairperson, matters like this, and especially with a report where it's been backwards and forwards, and there's obviously some contentious issues around it, is generally discussed better in person, in my view, and with a paper-based version in front of us. Nonetheless, Chairperson, I do think that the word seemingly deliberate. So it was a blatant attempt, but I think that we can all live with the fact that if it says the seemingly deliberate attempt by officials, it captures the sentiment of the committee, gives us sufficient comfort that it's not a direct accusation, but I think that phrasing would be absolutely correct, and I think I would suggest that we can go ahead with that, and hopefully the rest of the amendments don't take as long to work through. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Ryder. Honorable Ndlovu, less than 1 minute, you already had a bite. Honorable Ndlovu.
No, Chair. I think I'm covered. I just wanted to indicate that maybe I didn't hear what Honorable Sibisa was saying, but I was just indicating that she was not part of those people who came to the car, because it was like an what do you call it, side discussion with the members of the community there. There was nothing like come and tell us whatever. When the people will see members of the parliament, they will go to members individually so and take whatever. That's what I was saying. I was with Honorable Brez and Swart and Honorable Ryder in the same vehicle by that time. Thank you.
Okay, Honorable Ndlovu, Honorable Sibisa is not disagreeing with you. She's just hoping that whatever that we put on the report must be a report where things were reported to the collective, not individual members. Honorable Khadebe, less than a minute. You already had.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I still insist that something which was discussed outside the meeting cannot be brought into the committee report. Thank you, Chair.
Colleagues, I do not want us to vote on these matters. Honorable members, can we just pack this one and go to others? We'll conclude the report with this one. Can we go to the next amendment? We're noting that we have not finalized the 3.2.1.
Chair, thank you. The next amendment, Chair, was also submitted again by Honorable Brits, which is highlighted there on a different color. So the paragraph starts by saying, at the time of the visit, approximately 1600, only a few rows of bricks had been laid in a small portion of the project for the day. The committee also observed that workers on site wore new protective clothing, including new heavy-duty construction shoes, indicative that regular workers. This was also sent to us by Honorable Brits. So, yeah.
Honorable Brits, your input, then I'll take members.
I will concur with the recommendation as stipulated by the Honourable Ryder. It makes sense, and I think in that way everybody will be satisfied with the wording of the report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Brits. Honorable members, I know this one was also raised while we were on site, that there's an indication of new bricks being laid, few of them, and it does not show as if there has been work happening on site.
Okay.
Are we
Sorry,
in
this
agreement
was-
with this one, colleagues?
Sorry.
Honorable Swart, we raise hands. Get
sorry.
speak. You may talk. You may come in, Honorable Swart.
Okay, now this, as what Honorable has said in that this was addressed on site, where everybody was there on site, and I especially asked the contractor was also on site, and this is what I've highlighted there, and asked the everybody that say just look at that, where the 2-3 groups was working. So what Honorable is saying, that is exactly what we have saw and experienced on site. So I'm happy with that.
Are we all happy, colleagues? Can you go to the next one? Silence means consent. Next one, Mr. Dlomo.
Chairperson and members and Pelelani, my apologies. I realize now that we skipped the very first one on page 18 because there were 2 instances on page 18. We skipped this first one that had to do with the nursing college, the Mabatu Nursing College. So I'm sorry about that. we skipped to the second one on page 18. So if we can just cover this first one as well, please. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks, ST. Thanks, Chair. This one also was submitted by Honorable Breeds. It reads as follows. Notwithstanding the fact that this project is still under construction, the committee observed that nursing students were attending lectures in the lecture rooms at the time of the visit, leaving questions about the legality of the occupation of the buildings in lieu of a valid occupation certificate and legal question regarding liability of risk while the project is still incomplete. This was also captured as is, as it was received from Mr. Brits without any changes.
Honorable Swart, I see your hand.
Agree. No, sorry, no, that was legacy, but I agree with that.
Yes, this one. Agreed, colleagues. Honorable Khadebe.
Yes, Honorable Chairperson, I think on that regard, we have to agree with this adjustment which is put by Honorable Press, because we know very well that when you're having a building site, the building site must be cleared off for ready to occupation. You cannot have this thing happening at the same time. But I think that what must happen then is that we must make a specific question to the Mabatutli and the Nursing College that what safeguard measures did they put in place to ensure that the students are not going to be injured, but it's inappropriate. It is not appropriate that when the construction is taking place and then the people are occupying that building, unless there were safeguards which you put on that. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry for that, colleagues. Thank you, Honorable Swart. I think there's an agreement.
The one that we just passed now, are we all in agreement? The seemingly,
Yes,
which one?
We are in
Honorable
agreement.
Britt said he's also happy with that. The wording of seemingly that Honorable Ryder has put in. Are we agreeing that? Can we put that in black?
No.
This is a report of the committee. We are not yet at 3.2.1, colleagues. I said we'll come back there. If members agree with any point that was done by any member, it means it's our collective agreement. Colleagues, 3.2.1 is going to delay the meeting. That's why I said we must pack it for the end of the discussion. Can we go to other paragraphs, please?
Yeah, Chair, this was just a suffix, or in other words, the completion of the already existing paragraph. It reads as follows. I'll read it from the last sentence, which is the overall project progress was estimated to be at 38%, and the original completion date of 24 June 2024 had been revised to 30 December 2026. Then Mr. Brits added that last line, which is arguable and opportunistic date under the circumstances. And this was also captured as it was received from Mr. Brits.
Honorable Khadebe.
Thank you, Chairperson. I also still have a problem with that one, because almost all the projects they do sometimes go on delayed. I've just dealt with the issue of Parliament. So I think that putting that it is an opportunity date under the circumstances, I'll not agree with that, Chair, because I think it is the project steering committee which can determine how far they can go or what extension they can request, as long as they do it within the legal means. If there must be a deviation, if there must be a deviation to the projection of the project, the contractor concerned must be able to get a permission from that. But I don't think that we can conclude that it is an opportunistic date. Ne? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Kadebe. Honorable Brett.
Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, it appears to me that not everybody on the platform remembers specifically this oversight. Now, maybe I should refresh your memory. The MEC was with us on that specific oversight, and when the official set the date of completion, the MEC himself questioned that date. So hence, my proposal that the proposed completion date is an arguable date of completion. So that is totally in line with our observations on site, at site, on the day.
Estelle, just go down a bit. Estelle. Estelle. Colleagues, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Just go down a bit, Estelle. Again, which paragraph number is that? Okay. Next one, Mr. Lomo. We'll come back to these other ones, colleagues. Is the second one that we'll need to revisit.
Apologies for that, Chairperson. Yeah, it is the same 3.2.1. It is just the end of that same paragraph that we're coming back to.
Next one, Makazenzile.
Yes, on this one, Chair, there were some few additions, which I think it was just a matter of putting some wordings. For instance, there was a missing word under waiting area. So Mr. Brits added the word area being outside, and then added and exposed to the elements, and consultation room being small and not easily accessible by the elderly, and then he added inaccessible by people with disabilities, as there were no wheelchairs, ramps, and he added only, and high steps leading to consultation rooms. Remember those high steps that were shown. And then he further added the very colored paragraph here. It was reported to the committee that due to the aforesaid conditions, patients often had to be consulted in the waiting area where confidentiality and privacy is not guaranteed. This has been the situation since the temporal structure had been operative. So these are the additions that Mr. Brits had made, and they were captured as.
Colleagues, Makazenzile, it's the one in Kuma in Klerksdorp, where a temporary structure is next to the clinic that was worked on by the day of our visit. And we do remember those steps. We were shown how patients wait outside while they're waiting to be called in for consultation. Honorable Kadebe, I see your hand.
No, thank you, Chairperson. I think that the red changes we agree upon. I can live with them, but the blue ones, no, it cannot be, Chair. I feel that the red ones must be accepted, and the blue one cannot be accepted. Because when having a building in progress, there are certain inconveniences which are going to take place. I can make a very simple example in Parliament. As we're speaking right now, we don't have the parking area, but you cannot elevate that because Parliament is being renovated. People will have to park outside Parliament, whatever. It is given that when you are building, there are certain areas which are going to be closed. But what we agree upon, that one which is red, I think is correct. Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm off the platform. I don't know whether we had that.
I think we've lost the chairperson.
Let me see if I can find her. I'm not sure. So that we can proceed. Because she was complaining about the rain earlier.
Co-chairperson, can you please check, because she said that there was no electricity there. There might be an interruption on her signal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Fadebe. I hope honorable members, they will agree with you on that regard. Honorable Fadebe is raising the point, members, with regard to the blue insertion on the paragraph. That in every building, when there is a construction, obviously there will be some disturbance in terms of the operation. So can I check with our members if they are persuaded, particularly Honorable Brett, who's the sponsor of the part, the Honorable Hadebe? House Chair?
Yes, Chairperson. I think
Sorry, Honorable Ryder, my apologies. I wanted to say Honorable Ryder. My apologies. House Chair?
Yeah, thanks very much. No, the two of us look very alike. So your confusion is well understood, Chair. Thank you very much. Chair, I don't know, it appears to me that there's a bit of whitewashing happening in terms of this report, or an attempt at whitewashing. And I mean, this was a constructive, good oversight that was held, and there were some very real problems that were highlighted there. Now, if we are not prepared to call a spade, I think that we'll be doing ourselves and the country a disservice. And so, honestly, I think we must deal with facts here. And the facts were that this is exactly what we saw. And it was reported to us that these conditions were problematic. So to try and hide that or explain it away or something is not constructive. And the mood was consistent amongst members that were on site. Things were not going exactly as they should have been going on any of these projects, and that's exactly why we were there. Now, if we try and whitewash this report and give the impression that everything is going along beautifully, it's not going to have a desired effect on the people of South Africa. And I mean, as has previously been said, the local politicians are as frustrated as we are at the state of delivery by the administration and by the contractors on site. I mean, this particular site, I remember it well. There were massive concerns again by the MEC as we were doing our walk around. So I really think it's not constructive for us to try and whitewash a report. Let's report the facts as they were seen, as they were reported to us on the site. And I think what was reported to us on the site is exactly what's captured in this paragraph. I think that, but honestly, Chair, I go back to what I'm saying. This report clearly requires us to be sitting together, probably giving a little bit more time to the detail in it, and preferably sitting across the table from each other so we can look each other in the eyes and have these discussions on a far more constructive basis than on a 9 o'clock Zoom call when we started our morning this morning at 9 o'clock already. Thank you.
Okay, I think that is the proposal from Ryder with regard to the sitting that possibly we need to have a face-to-face sitting with regard to how do we view this report because of Honorable Khadebe.
No, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I think that there's something, I'll agree with that one of sitting face to face because that's what we agreed originally last year when we said that we'll sit physically and deal with the report. But what is not acceptable when the people are going to insinuate that the report is being whitewashed, there are certain things the committee can do. Part of the recommendation here is that within a period of 60 days, the department of the MEC should report back to the committee. The issue here is that part of the oversight is to ask questions as the MPs. We can put specific questions around that issue. Take, for example, this issue of the issue of the exposure or the issue of the exposure to the elements, whatever it might be. Did the department improve that condition? I think it is like that because what is happening here is that that issue was temporal. We can ask whether it has been done because now it was last year and it is now April. I think that from that period up to now, something should have been done. I think that the committee would have done its job if it has asked that what did you do about those conditions? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Khadebe. I think without going much up and down, I think I'll take the proposal from Honorable Ryder, which is agreed and seconded by Honorable Khadebe to have a physical meeting so that we can be able to look at this report as it is, because now it's I can hear that members everyone has got his own view of saying this has to be done, especially in terms of what is it the role of oversight in vis-a-vis what has been highlighted by honorable members and which will able to assist us going forward. I'm not sure, honorable members, if there is any opposing view in that regard to say let's take this report back. Then there should be an urgent meeting, the physical meeting, whereby we'll be able to highlight most important issues in that regard. I don't see any disputing hand. Honorable Mr. Domo, I think that is the proposal. Let's agree with that. The report be taken back, and then there should be a meeting which is very that has to be done urgently. The physical meeting, then we'll be able to look at this report holistically, and all the parties must be able to come and agree on the insertion that has been highlighted there. Thanks, honorable members. I'm not sure what is the next part. Mr. Domo, can you also assist me in that?
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. I think on our side, we accept the proposal. As long as we agree to the proposal, we accept it, Chair. We are happy.
Okay, thank you. What is the next
this was the last item, Chair.
Oh, that was the last.
No.
Okay. Let me
I
send.
am,
Apologies, Chairperson. I'm so
back,
sorry.
Honorable Ndlovu.
Yes, no, thank you. I wanted to formally hand over to you, Chair, that the meeting agreed that the report need to have very serious deliberations, and our members have agreed that this report be sent back. Then we will have to look at the date that we're going to accommodate all of us for a physical meeting so that we can be able to discuss this report. Thanks very much. Then we can go to the next matter. Thank you. I hand over to you.
Exactly. Busy that my gadgets batteries are dying. I'm so sorry for that. Colleagues, I am only agreeing to what you have agreed upon because we had a very long day. If it was according to me and we started our meetings normally, we were going to take the whole day to deal with this report if we had time. But on the basis that it's in the evening day, we can refer this another day as you have agreed, colleagues. But I think we must work towards completing this report, tabling the report before the NCOP and conclude it. It has been with us for a very longest time now. I'm just wondering if this is how we're going to deal with the reports of other oversights. But maybe because it was our oversight, we should take it as a pilot project for us on how we process the reports of oversight. I really appreciate your guidance on the matter and that you have agreed to refer it, Estelle. We have 2 sets of minutes, the one for the 24th and the 25th of March. Take us through the first set.
Thank you, Chairperson. The 24th of March was the virtual meeting, briefing by SALGA and the FFC on the Division of Revenue Bill. There's the first page are the attendees, second page, the officials, introduction, FFC's presentation, and SALGA's, and then the deliberations. Page 5 and 6 and 7. And then the draft minutes that were considered and the meeting agenda 12:23.
I'm sorry for that, colleagues. Can I get an indication by show of hands whether this is a true reflection, Honorable Ndlovu?
Thank you, Chair. This meeting echo does not help me. Yeah, Chair, thanks very much. I move for the adoption of the minutes and indicate that is a true reflection of what transpired. Thank you.
Honorable Ndlovu moves. Honorable Ryder.
Thank you, Chair. I'll second that.
Thank you, Chairperson. That brings us to the minutes of 25 March, also a virtual meeting when we had the public hearing. Members present, and then all the civil society organizations that were present. Also National Treasury officials. And then there's the order in which they presenters, and here we are at the deliberations.
Sorry, Chair, we don't see that one on the screen.
Is my screen not visible?
No, it's not, Estelle.
The old set is the one which is on the screen.
Yes, I think your screen is frozen somehow.
Oh, so on my side, I'm seeing the 25th. Let me stop and then start again. Is it visible now, the 25th of March?
Yes.
Okay. Apologies for that.
Still visible.
Okay.
It's still loading. Yes, it is now visible. Yes, you may take us through, Estelle.
Right, ma'am. There's we went through the attendees, the officials, the presenters, and here are the deliberations on page 5 and page 6 and page 7. And then the closing remarks, what was made by Honorable Ndlovu, was chairperson was had to leave the platform due to illness. Meeting adjourned at 18 minutes past 1.
Is it a true reflection of what transpired on the day? Can I get
Chairperson, I'd like to move to say that it was a true reflection and accurately records the events of the day. Thank you.
And I will second that.
Right. Mr. Brits seconds. Thank you, colleagues. Opportunity to thank all of you for making time to attend the committee meeting in the evening. I know we had a very long day and it sometimes becomes strenuous having to deal with a lot of the day, but I really appreciate your efforts and your commitment towards doing the work of this committee. This brings us to the end of our meeting, colleagues. Thank you very much and good night. God bless.
Good night. Thank you. Bye.